Although he is now widely known as the man behind the Lord of the Rings films, director Peter Jackson got his start in movies making black comedy horror films. His first feature, Bad Taste, was a low-budget, gory splatter comedy, and it was released in 1987. Jackson later returned to the genre with his gloriously over-the-top gorefest Brain Dead in 1992. After heavy cuts to appease the MPAA, which removed over 10 minutes of violence, it was eventually released the following year with an R rating, with the rather humorous content description, "Rated R for an abundance of outrageous gore." Following the success of his drama Heavenly Creatures in 1994, Jackson teamed up with acclaimed producer Robert Zemeckis to make the black comedy horror film The Frighteners in 1996. It lacked the outrageous bloody violence from Jackson's earlier films, and received generally positive reviews from critics at the time. However, it barely made back its costs, making just over $29 million on its $26 million budget. The Frighteners has since enjoyed a rebirth on home video, when Jackson's director's cut was released on DVD in 2005. But The Frighteners had its fair share of production troubles. Aware that he was supposed to deliver a PG-13 rating for the film studio, Jackson ran into problems with the MPAA in the United States following the screening of his film. He had made a conscious effort during shooting to make sure that bloodletting was kept to a minimum, and that the violence and horror were not too strong. But the MPAA took issue with the supernatural finale of the film, where the killer Johnny Bartlett and his lover murder people in a hospital with a shotgun. Jackson clarified to the ratings board that the violence was implied and unseen, but the MPAA countered that it was the overall dark tone of the sequences that pushed the film into R territory. Despite Jackson making numerous cuts, the MPAA did not relent, so Jackson reinstated the cut material, as well as beefing up other sequences at the end of the film. For instance, the scene where the psychotic FBI agent Dammers has his head accidentally blown off was reinstated, which replaced the original PG-13 friendly footage that simply showed him being blown back into the chapel doors behind him, and The Frighteners was thus released with an R rating in the United States. The film later came into the BBFC for a theatrical certificate, where it was decreed that cuts were required for a 15 rating. It is worth mentioning that when Jackson's earlier film Brain Dead had come in for classification, a case was made at the time by the BBFC that the film should be passed as a 15, despite its graphic, gory violence. One examiner at the time noted, "I was strongly tempted to go for 15, despite the endless succession of amputated limbs, beheadings, buckets of blood and dismemberments. Despite there being so much gore, it is only part of the mechanism of the comedy. I don't think I've laughed so much at a film all year, and I'm not a fan of the genre." However, following the misguided outrage over the video nasties in the 1980s, with films like The Evil Dead causing headaches for both the BBFC and the British tabloids, another BBFC examiner remarked, "Apart from the political factor, we need to be very careful before pushing back the horror boundaries too quickly. As things now stand, Brain Dead must surely remain 18 uncut." With a 15 rating for that film being suggested, it is quite puzzling that the censors of 1997 ordered cuts to The Frighteners, a much tamer and less graphic film. 3 cuts to reel 5 were demanded before a rating could be granted, with the first 2 cuts occurring when Lucy discovers the evil Patricia's dead mother in her bedroom. Reduce blood and gore for the 15 by cutting zoom in to corpse at about halfway, losing the final 15 frames of bloody face, and then, when Lucy gets up onto bed to escape being stabbed, trim the opening of shot so that corpse is masked by Lucy almost immediately. These cuts made little difference to the strength of the scene. Compare the uncut version with the censored UK version.
Mrs. Bradley, are you coming with us? Bradley? Mrs. Bradley, are you coming with us? Oh my God.
The third cut occurred a little while later, when, as previously noted, Damas has his head blown off. The uncut version plays as follows. When FBI man is shot by Patricia, reduce sight of his exploding head to only 3 frames of blood expanding to fill screen, removing blowing apart of head with bits of flesh and gore flying off in all directions, which is excessive at 15. Inserting reaction shots of Hero or Patricia would enable you to cut back to ghostly head appear on headless torso, which is funny. In order to accommodate this demand, the filmmakers rearranged the scene slightly, cutting away to Frank falling through the floor and thus masking the gory impact shot, as shown in this clip.
As an agent of the United States government, I am ordering you to turn around!
Following these 3 cuts, The Frighteners was passed with a 15 rating on January the 10th, 1997. This cut version was later released on video, Laserdisc and DVD in the UK between 1997 and 1999. Annoyingly, in what appears to have been an effort to save money by not having to produce different DVD masters for different countries, Europe and Australia received the same cut UK version on DVD as well, since those regions use the same PAL video format as the UK. The American Region 1 DVD, to name but one exception, was released fully uncut. Peter Jackson's director's cut of The Frighteners came into the BBFC for a new DVD rating in 2005, and with both a new BBFC director and set of classification guidelines in place, the BBFC waived all their previous cuts to the film and passed it uncut with a 15 rating on November the 11th, 2005 for moderate bloody violence and language. This version was released on HD DVD and Blu-ray, and the latter is now the standard version available to British buyers, with the disc containing both the theatrical version and the director's cut. However, the BBFC website does not currently indicate that the theatrical version has officially been passed uncut.
I'm in the mood for a little bit of sex.